I was going through this horror movie phase. I don't know, maybe a year ago. And I watched the movie Fresh. And who is in the movie Fresh? Daisy Edgar-Jones. You probably know her from Normal People, a phenomenal, phenomenal TV show that blew up during COVID. But I discovered her from that movie Fresh. And I remember watching that movie and thinking to myself, this girl is fucking awesome. Even though she's playing a character in the movie, obviously, I was like, I feel like she's cool and I want to hang out with her. Like, I was like, I, I I don't know anything about her. I'm watching her in a movie, but I was like, I just feel like she's a cool person. And so I'm very excited today to be talking to Daisy. She is a critically acclaimed British actress, known for her versatile performances. She began her journey in the performing arts at a young age. I love theater kids. Like, I like dating theater kids. I like being friends with theater kids. Like, I'm just really attracted to theater kids. I can't tell you how many crushes I've had on theater boys. I haven't always like won them over necessarily, but I've definitely always had a weird thing for theater kids. As I mentioned earlier, she became known for her breakout performance in the Emmy award-nominated series Normal People. And this summer, Daisy is starring in the Universal feature Twisters. And then later this year, she will appear on Swift Horses alongside Jacob Elordi, Will Poulter, and Diego Calva. She is busy, okay? She's booked and busy, but she's given me a little piece of her day today to hang out and talk. And we're all going to get to know Daisy today and just hang out with her. And I think it's going to be absolutely awesome. So I'm excited to present the talented, the beautiful, the amazing Daisy Edgar-Jones. You know what I'm obsessed with about us? Is that, and you definitely don't know this, we have an unbelievable amount of things in common. Like, it's actually weird. Like, it's really bizarre. Like, I had to make a list.
Okay.
Because we have so many just random, coincidental things in common. For example, we're both only children.
Okay.
How did you find that?
I'm really curious. Okay, I both love and hate it.
Yeah, I understand.
That's so interesting. That's so interesting you're an only child. I kind of like, I feel like that's why you're very good at making friends.
We're forced to be good at it.
You have to be, because it's like, you have to be that person on the beach on a like holiday with your family who's like, can I
Yes.
play? Because you don't have the like safety net of a sibling.
Yes.
And it's hard, but I do think it's a great lesson in life to like get good at putting yourself out there.
Yes.
But I was actually talking about this with my friend recently. Like, I love being an only child because I'm very close with my family. I'm very like, I feel like I was forced to sort of be at the adults table from a young age and
Me as
like
well. Yep.
be able to sort of sit quietly and listen. But I also like, there's a lot about it I don't like. Like, do you like being an only child?
I did feel lonely.
I know what you mean. It can be really lonely. And I think the thing that I find like loneliest is, I don't know if you feel this way, but I'm a very nostalgic person. Like,
Me as well.
I love sitting in the sort of comfortable pain of like memory and remembering my childhood. But I think I have this sort of desperate want to impart what it was like to other people because only I experienced it. And I don't have anyone else to be like, Dad was like that, wasn't he? Or Mum used to do this thing. Like, no one to be like, oh, and also no one to sort of legitimize my experience as well and be like, yeah, that I remember that was like that, not the way you were told it was like, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Are you very like emotionally attached to your parents, would you say? Because that's my experience. I'm like almost borderline probably toxic in the way that I'm like attached to them in a way.
Yeah, like, are you quite like obsessed with your...
Like, I'm just very anxious about them, I would say. I'm like anxiously attached to them.
Actually, that's so funny you say that. Like, I was very good. Like, it's maybe one of my biggest regrets. I wish I'd been like naughtier.
Me too.
But I was
never snuck out.
Nope.
Yep.
No, I was like unbelievably well behaved. And like, I think it's because I felt this incredible pressure that like, if I fucked up, I was like, it was all on me.
Yes.
You just feel more responsible because you are the only one. I don't know.
Parents, when there's only one child, they have the ability to keep close tabs on the kid. And so, you know, how would we have snuck out?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we could have. Whereas, like, when there's 3 other kids in the house, it's like, okay, well, Johnny's over here. Like, he just shit himself. So we have to, like, clean up Johnny's shit. And then, Sally's over here. And, like, she's, I don't know, crying about something. And then, you can
Emma
sneak off.
is sneaking off.
Exactly. But we couldn't do that. But I think that in some ways, that is kind of a miracle because, like, the danger, in retrospect, now that I'm an adult, I regret not taking those risks. But I'm also like, God, like gnarly shit can happen.
Yeah,
So like honestly kind of good.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it made you more creative being an only child because you were bored a lot?
I think I was quite weird. Like I think I was
Yeah. Please elaborate on that.
Well, because like, a lot of my childhood was like playing on my own,
Me
like
too.
in the like with like my little like imaginary like fairy friends and kind of
I had fairies. Oh my God. Did you ever build fairy houses and stuff?
Oh, big time. I was big time into it. I took it very seriously.
Okay, so we're twins. All good. We're just exactly twins. This is insane. Yeah, you have to. How else were you weird?
Oh God. I mean, I think I was just genuinely just sort of generally embarrassing, but I think that's carried on into my adulthood as well. Like I don't know if I've left that.
Guess what else we have in common?
What else?
We're both Geminis.
Hey,
Do you
was it
believe
your
in
birthday?
Yes,
When?
May 22nd.
May 24th.
Exactly. Are you into astrology?
I am. I'm not very versed in it, but I'm
not
like,
either.
I am getting there. I'm into it.
I did honestly more research than I think I've ever done because I was like, we're both Geminis. Like, let's see if this leads to us having things in common.
Okay.
And we'll see. So a Gemini trait that I read about is that you're good at language. Like Geminis are supposed to be good at language, right?
As in learning languages?
Just language in general. So like
Okay.
speaking, like just communicator speaking and like accents and things like that. And you have done so many different accents in your career. And I'm curious, do you have a natural knack for that? For speaking, for language,
really
for these
interesting.
things.
I didn't know that. I think I do. Like I think I have accents in my house, so I think I've always grown up with loads of different accents. But I'm also I think like when I'm with other people, I'm like mirroring them a little bit. So like that accent thing starts to happen. But yeah, that's funny. I wonder if it's actually more to do with my star sign.
How are you with communicating? Are you a good communicator, would you say?
I don't know. I think, well, I'm struggling to communicate whether I'm a good communicator. So maybe
maybe that's a sign.
No, maybe that's a sign.
So far, you're a great communicator.
Thank you. I think that I think I'm quite good at articulating how I feel. I'm just like, but more of me struggles to like voice how I feel honestly. Like that part I'm not good at.
People pleaser maybe in some ways.
Completely.
I am prone to people pleasing as well. I've had to really, really work on that.
It's an affliction. It really genuinely is.
Challenging, but I think it gets easier.
I think
time.
like what I struggle with is like, I find my people pleasing, I so struggle to say how I feel sometimes, but then what happens is I just build up resentment, which is totally unfair. And then I'm just like, cut it all off.
I'm the same. Do you cut people off?
Rarely,
easily?
but I have a very like high stretch, but yeah. Sometimes when it's just there's one little thing that will like absolutely do it, and then I'm like goodbye forever.
Well, but it's not even that. I feel like if you're describing what I think you're describing, it is this long buildup, but then it'll be like some random thing that breaks the camel's back. Like it'll be the smallest straw, but I get that. Final Gemini trait is being indecisive. There's actually a bazillion Gemini traits. Honestly, there's probably so many that it would apply to every single human on the planet, which is maybe why people hate astrology. But are you indecisive, would you say?
Massively.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So
are you?
With the yes.
Mm-hmm.
I would say like 75%. So like there are times when I'm just dead set on something for no reason. Like I couldn't tell you why. But I would say for the most part I am indecisive. Maybe because I'm a Gemini. But how do you choose what projects are exciting to you? Because I mean, I feel like there are always, there are so many things to audition for. And it's like at a certain point you have to narrow it down and figure out, okay, what's worth my energy? How do you figure that out?
I feel like I'm getting better at it, but like I mean, I love being decided for. Like, I love like going to a restaurant and being like, "You tell me what I should order." Like,
yes,
give me a tasting menu any day. Like, so with like, and I'm only now in a position in my career where I do have some semblance of choice, and that's like such a privilege, but also like, yeah, it's hard. It's hard because there's so many reasons why a project could be really good and could be not. But I'm getting much better at sort of like honing in on the kind of career I want and the type of actor I want to be, and also like I think the thing, especially with filmmaking, is I love filmmakers. I love being in a director's vision. I love feeling like I'm in somebody else's painting. And so that's becoming a lot more specific for me of like I'm choosing to go for a filmmaker. And character is everything, obviously, but you can't be sure that that character will be what you want it to be unless the filmmaker is like there to make that, because it's
Absolutely.
so their medium. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I also have like a great team who they are very patient with me, going like, maybe I really want to do it. Actually, I don't. No, maybe I do. Like which I do all the time. So
That's important, like,
yeah,
having a good team who gets it and who also
yeah,
is like, "This is actually a really good opportunity. You
totally.
should do this. You
Hmm.
should at least try it," or whatever. Would you ever like, what's your feeling about being on the other side of things? So, writing, directing, because I think it depends, like, there's certain people that are like, I really just love, this one sort of act. And it's like, I just like being in it. There's a passion for being almost like a blob of paint for the
Hmm.
painter. Like there's something so beautiful about relinquishing control in that way, especially as an indecisive person. But do you also have a desire to say write or direct? Or are you like, no, I don't care?
I actually would like in that I'm a bit of a control freak. Like I would absolutely love to direct, and I think also I do love every part of making a film, and I think that I would love to just sort of be behind the camera and play with camera and play with like music and play with another actor and see what would happen. So
Yeah.
I definitely have dreams, but I feel like I have so many things that I haven't even like scratched the surface of in terms of acting that are like it would be a while away.
Hmm.
But I watched your podcast with Charlie XCX, which
Yes.
I loved.
Oh my
I
God.
also like
Thank you.
your like all of your just the brat, just it's all amazing. But
Thank you.
Charlie was talking about like I was just thinking she needs to direct. Like
Yes,
she really does.
totally.
She was like, I watched like 4 movies at Sun. I was
It's
like, oh
unbelievable.
my God, I need to like get my movie watching. Like it was like wild. But do you feel this kind of itch? Like it's a funny thing when you find yourself in a career, like do you feel an itch to kind of keep changing what you do? Like
Like I've gone back and forth about sort of like the next, say, 10 years
mm-hmm.
a lot in the
Mm-hmm.
last, say, 5 years. Like,
Mm.
just thinking about what I want to do. And there's a lot of noise around you, right? People saying, like, oh, you would be really good at this, telling you what you would be good at. And that's very nice and like very inspiring in a lot of ways. But at the same time, it's confusing because
Mm.
that's not your own original thought. And so I've been challenged by that, like trying to sort of hone in on what I want to do. I've sort of started to figure out what I like and don't like when it comes to like my own, like for me, I'm terrible at things that are fictional.
Mm.
Like
That's
I've
so funny.
I've like toyed around with the idea of, possibly getting into more things that are fictional,
Mm.
like in various realms, like whether that's writing something or whatever. And there might be a world where that makes sense, but I'm somebody who I'm just drawn to nonfiction.
You
I
just
love
love the real.
documentary. I love, based on true story. Like I love these things, right? For like to create anyways, to consume, I love everything. But and so it's confusing, and I bet you can probably relate to that as well. Sort of this, there's a lot of noise. I also think too there's a lot of pressure to do things at a young age,
Yeah.
right? Like, "Oh, we need to do
Oh
it
my
now.
God.
We're young. We have to do it now." And it's like, "No, you guys, we can create things for the rest of our
Well,
lives."
that's the thing that's so mad to me because like I through this industry and I suppose and also through being an only child, just
Yes,
always calling back, but like have a lot of older friends.
me as
And they're
well.
always like, you're obsessed with age. Like
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with going, and how old were they when they did that? Like,
Yes.
and how old were you when you like met your partner? And how old were you when you like achieved this thing? I
Yep.
think like I think that's something of like being in your 20s, there's this sort of feeling of like, I don't know, you're so aware of age and where you thought you would be and like milestones. especially because you've been doing this since you were 16, and this is when I know everything about you and you start.
Stop, I'm
It's
obsessed.
like I'm a mad stan.
No, this is amazing.
But like when your career kind of launches at a young age, it's funny. It's like it's that thing where it's an amazing thing, but sort of that sort of honing in on what you really desire. And I think when you've sort of gone full blaze into something really young, it's a funny thing when then you're older going like, oh, is this actually, do I really love, like,
Yes.
figuring it out. So yeah, I'm so obsessed with age and how old people were when they did things. It's so funny.
The one thing that like changed my perspective on it was my dad, because he, to me, is the epitome of somebody who's like, I don't care how old I am. I don't care what, the timeline is supposed to look like. It doesn't matter. And I am constantly looking at him like, okay, I have to remember this, because there is this sort of pressure, I think, internally in this industry to do everything now, but also societally as well, to be like, do everything now.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
find your partner that you're going to be with forever, if you're somebody who, wants to do that, or start thinking about kids, start thinking about where you're going to live, start doing, you need to be on it. And you don't need to be on it, but there's the pressure to be on it. And it's overwhelming.
It's so overwhelming. We're living a lot longer, and actually the director who directed Normal People,
Mm-hmm.
he did a talk recently with his best friend who also did the music for it. And they were talking, I wasn't there, but my friend was telling me that he didn't make his first like feature film until he was like in his late 30s.
Wow.
Or
Yeah.
maybe even older. And like now he's Oscar nominated, and like, you know, he's just it's amazing when you realize like you can take a deep breath. Like
Yes.
there is this feeling like I need to, and I get that you have to work, you have to earn, you have to, start to grow roots for the life you want to have. But there's also like, I think that pressure of like, it has to be now and I have to have achieved it by 24. I
Mhm.
think it's nice to be like, actually, that's not
Not at all.
not the case.
Speaking of that, another thing that we have in common is that we both didn't go to college.
Hey!
What was that decision like? Because I can relate to sort of this feeling of, this might not be the right thing for me.
Yeah, it was like, I remember sort of the first year, which was like my gap year, I suppose,
Mhm.
and then being like, oh, this is a gap life. Like this is actually
Yes.
just my my life. Like what I had been acting like from the age of, I had an agent from when I was 16, but I got my first job when I was 17 in a show which was like the British equivalent of Friends.
Mhm.
So I played like one of the kids of the adult cast.
Yep.
And I'd like have one line an episode, but I'd be like, thought it was sick, and I was like, had made it.
It is sick,
It
though.
was sick.
It totally is.
I was thrilled. I was working like 3 or 4 months in the year and auditioning loads, and I kind of just was like, I applied for uni and I got in and I really thought about it, but it didn't make sense for me to. It felt like it didn't make sense to go to then come out of uni 3 years later to continue trying to audition. And
Yes.
but I did like really weigh it up because I loved learning, and I love
I did
school
too.
and I wanted that live experience, but I decided not to. But I don't regret it. Do you ever like?
No. Well, I actually did something even weirder where I left high school as well. So I like didn't
Whoa.
even finish high school. I technically got like a California diploma because I went and took a little test and they were like, here you go. It's like the bare minimum, but like, so legally it's not like I dropped out, I guess. But it is one of those things where I think when you can feel that there's an opportunity there
Mm,
to dedicate yourself to something in the moment, and it's sort of, and you get that feeling that like you must do it now.
yeah.
You can't fight that. But it's something that I struggle with discussing at times because it's not a one size fits all thing. Like there are
No.
so many people who love, who loved going to college, who benefited from it so much, who like, have been able to build these like incredible careers off of it. And so, that's why it's sort of a weird thing, because it's like I can't give advice about it. I can't,
No.
like it's something that was so unique. It's so unique to the individual that, but I was somebody that was so obsessed with doing well in school that it was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like leaving.
So what made you leave? What was the decision?
I left because YouTube was able to be a job for me all of a sudden. And I'm like 17, or no, I was 16 at the time. And all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, like this could be my job for the next few years. I should probably just do this for now, and
Mhm.
then if I wanna go back to
You
school,
can.
I always can, and that was hard for me to swallow because as we've talked about with age, it's like, yeah, but going back to college as like a 30-year-old is embarrassing. Like that's what I thought as a 16-year-old. Now I know that that's ridiculous, but at the time I was like, this is, I have to either do this now or I'm never going to do it. My parents kept reminding me, no, you can go back whenever. But were you somebody who, you loved learning? Would you say that your experience at school, like, high school was how was it, like, in general?
I loved school, like, and I was really I mean, I was head girl, like, head girl. Do you have head girl here? Do you
What does that mean?
It's a big deal. It's no, it's
Ooh!
ba
Ooh!
no, basically, like, you just sort of you do a little speech and then they like, the school votes on whether you should, like, represent the everybody.
Oh, like class president.
Yeah, yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
I was head girl, and so it was a big deal. It was a lot of pressure, actually.
That's a lot of
It
pressure.
was a lot of pressure. I mean, I have an old diary that I've been keeping since I was 14, and it is so funny. I was like, like the amount of pressure I felt, and I'm like,
Oh, no.
now I look back and I'm like, the stakes were so low.
Yeah, you had no idea the
But I'm
pressure
like,
that you were gonna experience later in your
oh my
life.
God,
You did not know.
no. But for me, that was like, a big deal. But I loved school and I really enjoyed learning. But I think you're right. I think, that college thing, sort of, it was really drummed into us of like, we call it university, but like you
Yeah.
you have to go. You kind of like have to. That's the one route. And obviously, like, not saying that, like you said, it's very different for each person. But I will say that, like, I feel there's so many other ways to follow what you're interested in.
What's so cool about your story is that you've been acting for a long time, Like, this has been a steady sort of dream for you since it feels like forever.
Mm.
And so, has this like what's your relationship to sort of acting as maybe a hobby to a career? Like what has that sort of process been like? And how has your relationship with acting sort of evolved as you've made it into a career?
Yeah, I still can't believe I, like, get to do it. Like, genuinely, I mean, it's like make believe for a living, and it is, I mean, I think that this last 5 years in particular have been bonkers. Like,
Yeah.
when I was 16, 17, doing Cold Feet, this sort of
Yep.
show, I I was working with brilliant British actors who were older than me, and just, like, hearing their, like, amazing story. I love actors as well, like,
Yes.
actors get a bad rap, but
They shouldn't.
they shouldn't. But yeah, I just loved all their stories and like learning from watching them. And so, you know, and like the jobs that have come my way have been amazing. But Normal People is definitely like, if you could boil down my absolute dream project, it would be that. Like, I'm a huge romantic. It's a love story. It's
Mhm.
like the best writer and book I've read, and
Mhm.
an amazing filmmaker and brilliant cast. So I think that that's really sort of, I've been so lucky and also in some ways spoilt by that, because
Mhm.
it really, what kind of launched my career really was something that is sort of my absolute dream. So since then, it's just, I feel like I feel so much older now, 5 years on. I feel so much older than I was.
It'll age you.
It really, yeah. I feel like, yeah, just sort of looking back on, yeah, I feel like I've learned like a lot these last few years, and yeah, really become an adult. But I am
Yes.
also growing older, so it's probably just like
No, but I
normal.
understand what you mean because in a way, like when you really get thrust into such a jarring and unusual experience, such
Mm.
as becoming a public figure in one way or another, you you're faced with challenges that are like so extreme and unusual
Yeah.
that in a way, you're almost forced to sort of mature, I think, all of a sudden at this rapid rate to manage the situation that you're
Mm.
being faced with because there are so many um scary, intimidating pieces of it, also incredible pieces of it, but whether it's the pressure of working on something that has this insane budget, and there are other really experienced actors working on it as well, and there's an experienced director, and you're coming in and you're like, I need to live up to this. I need
Mm.
to step up to the plate. And then there's this pressure of the whole world's watching. So it's all of this, like, all of this, I think, forces you to, in a lot of ways, philosophize about things in a way that you wouldn't have
Yeah,
otherwise, or, you know, um, sort of grow this more adult, thick skin in a way.
totally. Like, do you remember? I'm so curious. For you, that kind of moment of your life changing in that thing of being known, was that like an overnight thing, or do you remember? Do you remember like a point in your life where you were like, ah, the tap's been turned on, and I don't think I'll turn it off. It'll turn off again.
It's weird. Like, yes, I feel like it was when I was at school,
Hmm.
and because I started my YouTube channel the summer before junior year, and then by junior year in school, people knew about it,
Yeah.
and, like, kids that maybe wouldn't have talked to me before, not necessarily because of any reason other than we just weren't crossing paths, but I was being sought out to discuss this thing now, and it was so unusual, and at school, it was, like, became this sort of, like, microscopic version of what it would sort of later become, but
Mm.
that was sort of when I was like, "Well, this is weird," like, people understand, but then after that, it was like a blur, like, I don't even remember. Do you have a moment?
Well, it was during COVID, so
Yes,
it
see,
was
that's weird.
weird. Like, I honestly, it was like, I mean, I don't know if it was because of that like I don't. I know in some ways a lot of my life has really changed, and like but I also feel like it was a sort of like a simulation, the whole thing.
Yes.
Like, even like the first time we met, I feel like was at the Met Gala, I think.
Yes.
And like that whole, I mean, that whole night was just like a complete simulation for me. Like, I was like, I'm not in my body. I mean, it went wrong for me in many ways, but like it was also amazing. But yeah, I think that like there was so much sort of during that time the show came out, and I kept getting sort of calls from people saying like, It's everywhere, it's everywhere. I'm
Yeah.
looking," especially in the UK, like it was the biggest, I think, the show that had ever been on the BBC iPlayer. And like I was being told that my life was changing exponentially, but
Yes.
in my actual life, I was just having these sort of Zoom interviews. I was on the Graham Norton show on Zoom.
Yeah.
So then you'd sort of turn your laptop off and be like, did that even happen? Like, and
100%.
it was such a weird thing. I think partly like there was so often where I was on like having these conversations with like a journalist, for example, and then
Mhm.
reading the article 2 days later and being like, because I hadn't met a real person. I don't know. It was just a really strange time. But even like going out with a mask on
Mhm.
and having like prolonged eye contact with people and being like, that's a bit different. But
Yeah.
is it that they've just not seen another human being in 3 days?
Yeah, yeah.
And they're like, oh, there is one. So
Yes.
yeah, it was really, I guess, like, I mean, a couple years ago, because I went from COVID back to back job to
Mhm.
do back to back jobs. And so it was an insular experience. So it was
Mhm.
really like 2022 when it was actually coming out into the world in a normal way that I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this feels different.
Was it really jarring for you, or do you think that in a way it was almost like more comforting to have it be this tangible thing now, because there is something very unnerving about feeling disconnected from your reality because everything is virtual in a
Hmm.
way, and like your life in all ways is not changing. Like, what was the sort of emotional reaction?
I feel like I'm quite like I'm quite self-conscious generally. Like,
Mhm.
I'm naturally, mostly my like base level is slightly deeply mortified, which is
Yes.
weird because a lot of the jobs I've done are like really mortifying in many ways. Like
Yeah.
like some of the things I've had to do. So like I used to that I remember when I was 16, there was a walk from my English class to the toilet, and it would
Mhm.
be through the like main common area, and
Mhm.
everyone would sort of look at you when you were walking. And I
Yeah.
remember being really like, how do I walk? Like, I was so self-aware of it.
Yes.
And so then it was like that, but on steroids, where like you just
Yeah.
get like really like, is my mouth doing weird things when I eat? Because you know that you're being looked at a little bit more. And
Yep.
so I found it quite like strange initially, but now I sort of again have been able to sort of compartmentalize the two things, I think, of like life
Yes.
and then that part of it that I know
Yes.
exists.
Maybe it's good in a way. I mean, obviously it's not ideal to sort of have this career explosion during a pandemic. That's not ideal, right? But at the same time, I think that there is something sort of nice about it because you can adjust to one thing at a time.
Totally. It was like having stabilizers on, I suppose. And also,
Yes.
I always wonder, like, would the show have resonated if it hadn't been like there was something
Totally.
about that time that was like,
It
like
was the perfect escape at that time.
yeah,
Yes.
we were all like horny and lonely,
Yes.
and it was
No,
like
it's
the
so
perfect show
true.
for that. But yeah, I mean, the thing that I find the strangest is like about the kind of like Zoom interviews and doing it all on Zoom and especially like social media growing and like
Mhm.
I find I'm not very good at like social media and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
But like I think that it was the sort of ultimate like autonomy I had over so much. Like I look back now and I wish I could have said to myself, like, that video will live on the internet forever. Like, wear a nicer outfit than that. Like, choose a better, light it better. But I was so sort of like, yeah, just setting up my laptop. And I'd have these weird moments sometimes during like calls where, because I was so in control of it all, like I wasn't being brought into a room to have interviews. I was like setting it up and lighting it,
Mhm.
where I'd have these weird like urges to sort of like do something really like, I don't know, like flash and like throw the laptop on because I was sort of like I just could ruin my complete career in
Oh,
like 1
we
second.
have the same brain
That's so do you feel that
because
too?
well, that actually leads me to our next thing that we have in common, which is that we're both very anxious.
I love that you know that.
I know
How
that.
did you
But
find that?
also, is it true that you also are prone to a level of sort of hypochondria even at times?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I'm the same way.
No
But
way.
more recently, I never ever had an issue with hypochondria at all. But recently, I am a mess. This week, I diagnosed myself with multiple things.
Oh
I
no.
convinced myself that I had lupus,
Oh
okay?
no.
Because I had a rash on my neck that looked sort of like a hickey. And I was like, what is that? And I Googled it, and Google told me it was lupus. That was horrible. I have allergies really bad. My right eye has been twitching. Convinced myself I was going blind in the right
But
eye.
isn't it crazy? Like you literally stub your toe and it's like you're pregnant or you have like stage 4 or
Oh,
something.
I think I'm pregnant once a week, by the way. I have literally my mom forced me to have an entire like drawer in my bathroom filled with pregnancy tests because of
Just
the
to
amount of
reassure
times
yourself.
that I've called her being like, "No, this time it's real. I'm pregnant." Like I could not understand more, but also the anxiety of being a public figure for me has been, to be honest, my biggest challenge thus far
Mm.
because of the reason that you just like your explanation of being like, I could just flash and fucking throw
Oh
the
my
laptop.
God. It's
Like
like terrifying.
intrusive thoughts
Yeah, completely. Like
from anxiety.
when I'm
Yes.
posting, I like it takes me so long to like even just doing a story. I'm like, I could do anything. I could write
Yes.
anything. Even though I don't want to. Like what the only thing stopping me is my brain going like, don't do that. Like it'll
I
have lasting consequences.
completely understand.
But I don't know, what if that part of me it's I think it's why like I don't love heights because
Mhm.
a big part of my brain is like, just jump. What if you just
Yes.
did? And then obviously my logic's like, you don't want to because you'll plummet. Don't do it.
Right.
But then I don't know. I'm always like, if that part of my brain just stopped and I just went like, I'm going to just do it.
I know.
It's a weird
I
thing.
could not understand more, and I feel like the thing that's the hardest, I think, is for us in a way, is that our situations in life exacerbate anxiety.
Completely.
Like, it makes it harder to do the things that we need to do in a way. Like, for
Mm.
example, if we need to, like, promote something on social media or do something on social media, now we're thinking about not only how everything's going to be perceived, but also, like, what if we lose our head one time? And what if
Yeah.
we fuck it up? Do you feel like you're constantly, in a way, maybe censoring yourself? Or do you find that you've been able to manage this sort of fear of the pressure of being in the public eye in a way? Like, how do
Mm.
you manage that?
Oh, I definitely sense myself. I think I'm sort of very, very meticulous or sort of want to make sure that I say the right thing and do the right thing. But then at the same time, I think I've realized more like how quickly things are yesterday's news. And also like we live in a time where like stuff doesn't stay for very long. Like
No, it doesn't.
the Met Gala that I met you on, like
Mhm.
I got like memed for a bit for like a really embarrassing interview I did.
I didn't even see that.
That's the thing, like probably not that many people did, but obviously that was the only thing all of my friends sent me post the Met Gala.
Yeah.
They were like, lol, like this is the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Mhm.
Basically, I had an interview. I mean, that whole day I was like completely just sort of like having an out of body experience.
Of course.
It was just like, I was just couldn't believe I was there. And also
Mhm.
was like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? And like my friend Paul had said, like, we'll meet beforehand. And
Mhm.
he was late. So I was just sort of at the front of the
Oh.
like, you know, the little pen area that
Yep.
you're in. And I literally was like, hi guys, scan your barcodes to the left. Like I was literally working there.
Yeah.
So then this person was like, do you want to do an interview, like a Vogue interview? And I was like, sure, it will pass the time. And it wasn't like even that bad, but I basically like just was really unbelievably awkward in this interview. And then like it cut and I didn't leave. Like I should have left, but I just sort of stood there like a weirdo. Anyway.
By the way, that's not your job. Don't worry. They're supposed to be
No.
like, okay, you're good.
Thank you. They should have said goodbye.
They should have said
I
goodbye.
was being polite. I was waiting to be dismissed.
You should have said goodbye. No, I as somebody who does the bogan, they should have said goodbye.
They should have said, okay, goodbye. I think they actually did say goodbye though. That's bad.
You just forgot. You're
I
like,
think I was like,
no, but it's scary. Was it the live one?
yeah,
That's
I
terrifying.
thought they were cutting away or something, and I didn't want to just leave.
No, it's very,
I don't wanna be rude.
it's impossible when it's live. It's impossible
Yeah.
to navigate. These things happen all the time.
Right.
But I understand because I had a similar meme experience with this speech that I did when I won like some sort of digital award, like the Streamy Awards. It's whatever.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. 2018 or something. But I did this speech and it was like, this was my first big event. And I did this speech.
It's overwhelming.
I didn't know I was going to win. I had no idea. I thought that they told you beforehand. So I was like, oh, I'm not winning. I'm just here to like, you know, rub shoulders with like, you know, Casey Neistat or like, you know, these YouTubers that I love. And like, that's what I'm stoked about. But I won and I had to go up and give a speech. I had nothing prepared and I fucking bombed it and said some cringy ass shit.
What did you say?
I don't even remember. I've literally blocked it out because I'm not kidding. I continue to this day to get shit about it.
No.
Listen, in the grand scheme, you can Google it after the, it's horrible.
I'm gonna
Emma's
it won't be that bad.
speech, it was pretty bad. Like I watch it and like I can laugh now, but whoa.
Next time you win, which will be soon, you need to like do it word for word again. You
gonna
need
do
to
the
double down and
exactly-
be like, nah, this is my acceptance speech every time.
Yeah, because guess what, y'all? This is me, and y'all fucking gave me this award.
I won because you like me.
Accept me for me,
Completely.
or you know, like give the award to someone else.
I mean, it's like
that's
crazy.
No, but here's the thing, though: if you're bringing your genuine personality to the table, you are more prone to these sort of embarrassing moments because you're not putting on this facade. If you like choose like, okay, I'm going to go into the Met Gala, I'm going to go into the 2018 Streamy Awards with this sort of facade, then guess what? You're safe.
Mhm.
But no one then knows you. So it's sort
Completely.
of this like, you know, it's a tempting route to take, but like I personally can't exist in that way. Like I don't know how to have that sort of facade.
Also, like I think that people connect to people that they like know are being authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely, there's been times where I've tried to be, but I like, that's just not like, it's just not who I am. But I also like, I love like when I see people being real.
Yes.
And also there's something, this is really, I learned about this recently. There's something called the pratfall effect. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's actually, this makes this kind of like, it's very interesting, but it's basically a psychological term whereby when you meet someone for the first time, if you can like sort of make a fool of yourself or a prat in yourself, you basically like they automatically like you more. If that makes sense. Whereby, like, for example, one of the best things that ever happened to Jennifer Lawrence, other than being just like mega talented, was also like tripping up at the Oscars because everyone was like, I love her. She's like a real person.
Yes.
We all trip up. Like, what a legend.
Yes.
And it kind of like, you know, I mean, winning the Oscar was probably the best thing that happened.
Yeah.
One of them. But yeah, I think that like, I think people just like realness. They like being able to go like, I see you're a human. You know?
It's I also think too, for anxious people in a way, to sort of accept and be okay with with embarrassment or failure,
Mm-hmm.
to come to terms with the fact that that is inevitable. And, in your case, potentially in the public eye even, to come to terms with it is to set yourself free and then re-fall in love with what you're doing all over again.
Mm-hmm.
But it is challenging to get there. Would you say that removing the variable of like the public eye, does acting cause or relax anxiety, or maybe both?
A bit of both.
Yeah.
I think that like when you're in the free flow with another actor doing like a cracking scene and you feel completely lost in it, like that is the most sort of freeing feeling because you're
Mhm.
just like, oh, I'm just like living in the present in this moment. And there is something massively magical about the moment between action and cut where you just have the floor and there's sort of like a true escape. But I also like I'm such a perfectionist and I hold myself to a very high standard.
Yeah.
So I think wanting to get it right, wanting to make sure that like I've done my best is something that like and the lack of control sometimes where you can't predict whether you're going to have 2 takes or 5
Yep.
or you're going to have like something go wrong or like a weather come in so you have to wrap up quickly and you didn't or you stumbled over a line or line dialogue changes just
Yep.
before. Like I think there's some parts of it that then I do like I find I really want to get it right. But I
Yes.
also like kind of like that because I think I'll always want to like be be better than I was before and like push
Absolutely.
myself better like more so like and not be complacent.
But it's rational anxiety, right? Because you're
Mm.
actually having anxiety about something that actually warrants a level of anxiety.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because like, that's something that's been hard for me to distinguish, being a very anxious person myself, is like, what anxiety is rational and irrational?
Yeah, that one's especially with hypochondria like
Mhm.
because like there are times where it's hard because that is irrational, I
Yep.
suppose. But you can really it can be psychosomatic. You really can start to feel it
Oh,
too. So
yes.
that's really funny. How have you found ways to kind of do that to differentiate the two?
I mean, I'm getting better now because I think that what I've been able to do is, over the years, every time that I think something's gonna go wrong and then it doesn't, I remember that and I sort of
Yeah,
store
yeah,
that
yeah.
in this place in my brain that is not hidden. I try to keep it up, in the front of
Yeah,
my
yeah,
brain
yeah.
so that I remember that next time. And that's been the thing that's helped me, is like, time and time again, I've worried about these things and they've not come to pass. Like, I've thought I'm going blind in my right eye. I've thought that I got food poisoning, from this like thing that I ate that like, wait, I think it was past its expiration date. Like, all of these little things I've been fine.
That's actually I think that's such a good way of handling it. Like that's exactly how I do it too. Where my health anxiety is not as bad as it used to be, but it definitely like it comes and goes. And I think in part like I think it's sort of a control thing maybe of being
Yes.
like I need to do something. So it's a sort
Yes.
of like in a job I think where a lot of the time you don't have control over a lot of your life.
Mhm.
I think maybe that's sometimes a way of like of having some but you're so right, that's the kind of I think not letting myself Google has been a really good thing because then you're sort of
Yeah.
rationalizing something that there's times where it makes sense. But I think where I've gone like, okay, I'm just going to leave it for a bit before I immediately diagnose a
Yes.
bunch of stuff. But also, it's one of the most like natural human experiences to be
Yeah.
anxious. It's how we survive. And
Yep.
like the issue is now that like the equivalent of a tiger is like an email you'll get through or like,
Yes.
and so we're constantly being stimulated with like things that make us anxious. And so that's sort of natural and not to like that I feel like a lot of compassion for that part of myself because I'm like, of course, like there's loads of things that like are quite anxiety inducing. But I think as I'm getting older, I'm getting much better at noticing it and figuring out ways to deal with it. And like a couple things have really helped me. Like
Mhm.
journaling is like
Yes. It
amazing.
can be so good.
It's so good. Whenever I'm like really, really anxious, I'm just like, do you know what? I'm gonna like write a bunch of stuff down. And suddenly when it's written out, it's the same when you talk to someone about something, you go like,
Yeah.
okay, now I've zoomed out. That's like I can tackle that.
Yes.
I know that like this intrusive thought or this thing is actually like,
Nothing to fear.
no. And then also breathing techniques is really good.
Oh,
That's a game changer.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like, because I think also there's been times in my life, like in 2021, I played like back-to-back very anxious characters. Like I
Yeah.
played somebody who's being like hunted by a cannibal,
Yep.
somebody who's like being hunted like in the marsh.
Yeah.
And then someone
Yeah.
who was like was sort of was murdered. So there was like a lot of like, for my job, I had to do a lot of like type breathing.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
really realized there was times where I was doing it loads and that like my body was like, oh, what is happening? Because it didn't know the difference, even though my brain was like, that
Yes.
isn't real. And in the reverse, I think I realized that like you can then trick your body to be calm as well. And like the sort of like 4 seconds in and 6 seconds out, that has been really amazing.
What does your routine look like on a day-to-day basis that, sort of supports a more calm vibe?
A more calm
A
vibe.
calm vibe.
I feel like I'm actually getting into my calm vibe era. I wasn't
Good.
for a while, but this like maybe this last month, I feel like
Whoa!
I'm feeling chill. I'm feeling really chilled.
What do you think has led to this?
I think I just felt sort of overwhelmed a lot. And so I've kind of gotten into like a good routine of sort of, the thing I found actually to be really great is giving myself 20 minutes of every day to actually do something I really, really want to do.
Mhm.
Because I read a lot for work, but I love reading, but
Mhm.
a lot of the time when it's for work, I
Mhm.
think that there's never a kind of feeling of like, oh, I'm really, so I'm now saying like, you get 25 minutes to read like whatever you really want to read.
That's amazing.
And then from there, like, you know, so I don't know, like that's really helped. But also just sort of I think deleting Instagram really helps me.
Okay, so do you not have you don't have Instagram?
I do, and then I re-download it and then I delete it often. Yeah,
Whoa!
yeah, yeah.
My mental state is absolutely atrocious when I'm going on Instagram a lot.
Yeah.
It's horrible. Wait, so tell me your story of deleting Instagram.
Well, I kind of feel that too. Like
Yeah.
I wake up and I'm on it and I kind of put it away and then I go on my phone to like answer an email and I'm on it. And I'm like, there's a time when I was realizing that like I'm not necessarily sort of like deciding, it's sort of becoming a habit now.
Yeah.
That is just something that I do, losing hours to it, getting like comparing myself, feeling anxious. So I was like, I don't have the self-control you do. Like if it's on my phone, I'm clicking on it. Like I
Of course.
can't not.
Yeah.
So I just deleted it and realized like it really does immediately change, I don't know, my mood. And I think, yeah, it's just so loud sometimes and it's just like all encompassing. And then you sort of turn it off and you go like, oh, doesn't really exist actually.
No.
Like what's here in this room exists. And like,
Yes.
that's where I'd rather be most of the time.
What are you reading right now? And what are you watching? Like
Ooh.
what's happening?
So I'm actually reading something called, I think it's called Conversations on Love or something. The titles escape my brain, but Phoebe Dynevor is an actress. She was like, you gotta read it, and I was like, oh my God.
Yes.
And it's so good. It's
Stop.
basically this woman, and she's interviewed people over the years about love, and she's like, why do we learn about maths and science, but we don't know about like one of the fundamental like parts being a human?
Absolutely.
It's so good. It's all about like romantic love, but also platonic and familial. It's like lovely. So I'm loving that.
Okay, amazing.
That's really good. What am I watching? I mean, I'm quite a sucker for like bad, but like I like but quite like bad telly. Like
Really?
yeah, like if I'm gonna watch telly, I'm like I do want to escape. I like good shows. Like
Yes.
I watch all the classics, but like I love like a reality TV show. Like
I love that you love that.
Oh, massively. Like I love.
What's your favorite?
I don't think you have it here, but we have a show called Made in Chelsea, which is like
I don't know that.
it's basically like it just follows people. Like Chelsea is like a part of London, which is sort of where the like posh people live, and they all go to like bougie restaurants and like wear like bougie clothes, and they're like Binky and Cheska are like arguing over something. It's like they're all like really posh. But it just follows them, and they're always having like relationship drama and like
so Real Housewives.
Oh,
vibes.
completely. It's like
okay, I love that.
The recipe's the same every episode.
Yes.
You're like, oh, they're still having relationship dramas in different way, but I will absolutely watch every episode. And I've been watching it religiously since I was probably like 11, and I love it. So that's my big thing.
Did you grow up watching like Vice documentaries?
Yes, I have. Yes, I really remember. I went to Amsterdam to try like weed for the first time, and I was
Yes.
like super convinced it was good for me because of a Vice documentary about
Yeah.
like Californian nuns smoking it.
Yes. No, I grew up on those, and I feel like that's what made me like love the Demented documentary. Like I
Yeah.
just grew to love it. And there's something so there is something so fun about it. But I had a horrible experience smoking weed, so I hope that yours was better.
No.
Did you have a freak out?
Yeah, it was not good.
Me as well.
Yeah.
I had a panic attack, one of my worst.
Oh, yeah, I ended up in an ambulance in Amsterdam.
I almost called 911.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
But also the person was like, no one's ever died of smoking weed. Like, you genuinely just
Well,
had
did you think you were losing it?
So I went interrailing with my friend, which is a big thing in like, well, I think there was a lot of American people on spring break there. So I think it's a big thing, but where you just get one massive train ticket and it takes you like to any
Yes.
city in Europe you want to go, and you do a list of like cities. And my friend Nancy and I went for like 2 weeks and we went all over.
Amazing.
It was so much fun. But we went to Amsterdam because we were like, we gotta try it. Like
Of
we gotta
course.
go, we have to do it all.
Mhm.
So like we we went mental. Like for about 4 days, we were like doing all the brownies, going on walking tours, like, you know. And on the final day, Nancy was like, it's our last day, like we've got to, like, we've got to try, we've got to do one. And I was like, oh my God, okay, fine. But can I pick? Because we've smoked too much and I don't really think I have the capacity.
Yes.
So anyway, they handed this menu over at one of the cafes and it had like a list of stuff. And I remember there was one, I think it had some mental name called like Slagathor on it. And it had like 4 different strains of weed. And I was like, yeah, that's pure. Like that's what the guys in California smoke, because I'd seen the Vice documentary.
Yep.
So I was like, this will be super chill.
Oh no.
Anyway, we shared it. And like I was on the side of this canal. And when you're like on weed and someone just like does the stupidest thing, like I think Nancy went like, "Ee," or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What?" Anyway,
Yeah.
we were like pissing ourselves, just
Yeah.
like laughing for ages.
Yeah.
And ages and ages and ages. And I wet myself and I was like, I wet myself. Anyway, so I was like laughing. And then I had that paranoid thought where I was like,
Yeah.
I'm never gonna stop laughing. Like ever.
Yes. That's when it
And I was
fucks with
like,
you.
I was like the Joker. I was like eyes streaming. I was like, I don't like this anymore.
Yes.
Like, please, can this end?
Yes.
So I was like, ha ha ha, like we were just painfully laughing. Anyway, I think like I was obviously starting to have a panic attack about the fact I was laughing. So I felt my heart go like ding 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 ding, and it was like beating really fast. And I was like, my heart's beating, but like anyway,
No.
I fully like I don't know what happened. I think I passed out. And I came to in an ambulance and like I had all these like ECG strapped to me.
Oh.
And Nancy was like in the front, like high as a kite, just like eating raspberries. And I just remember that like that song, that song, I've been through the desert on a horse with no name.
Yes.
You know that one?
Yes.
That was playing on the like radio of the ambulance. And I was just like, what the hell has happened to me?
Oh no.
Anyway, and then this guy was like, yeah, you're absolutely fine. You've just had a bit of a panic attack. Because they were probably like, oh God,
they're
we're so
probably
sick of
used
these
to it
tourists
too.
coming over, like thinking they can just like handle it. So anyway, from then on, I was like, this isn't for me.
Yeah, have you not smoked since?
No, because I had a gummy experience where pretty much the exact same thing happened, and I was like,
gummy.
no, that's
I could talk to you about drugs all day, but instead, we have to talk about your new movie.
Yeah.
Because I want to know, like, tell me everything about this project, considering that, you've had this sort of meteoric rise, as one would say, and it's like now you're working on this project, starting from a completely different point. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you're going into this with so much under your belt, in a way.
Yeah. I feel like with every job, I feel like the first day of school, like completely green.
I've wondered that.
Like, especially with this, because it's like, I've never been on something that's like a big blockbuster. And like, I mean, it was the most fun film to make. It genuinely, and I think it's the same to watch. Like, I think it is such a blast, but also like, it's the best cast. I feel like I have like this absolute knack for like working with the internet's boyfriend. Like,
That's so true.
I like work with Glen Powell. He's like the best. He's amazing. And like, I've like my career, I've worked with so many like brilliant,
handsome
internet
men.
boyfriends. It's amazing, but he's just like phenomenal and like so talented. And yeah, but no, it was such a great experience. Like this is definitely the biggest like scale thing I've ever done, for sure.
Like, do you feel like you were able to sort of relax into it a bit more because, you have this sort of experience? I guess I'm trying to, like, tap into the fun level. Like
Yeah.
like what does the fun look like on a set to you now, right?
Yeah. Well, I feel like there was so much about it that I wanted to do. Like I really wanted to work with Isaac, our
Mhm.
director, and he's that filmmaker that I'm obsessed with. Like I
Mhm.
loved Minari, I loved his first film, and I thought like him doing a disaster movie or like like him doing Twisters is such a cool unexpected combination.
Yes.
And so meeting with Isaac and hearing his enthusiasm, like he grew up in Arkansas, so he's like knows what it is to like see tornadoes and
Mhm.
like has seen them and like sheltered from them. And he also like was a big lover of Spielberg, and like
Mhm.
Spielberg produced the film, and he was like, I just want to like in my career, I want to do everything. I want to not limit myself to what I could do.
Yes.
And so I was like, that is so cool. And so what I want to be able to be like, yeah, I've done a massive fuck off huge disaster movie, and I've also
Yes.
done like a really insular character driven thing, and like I want to have that range. And so his enthusiasm got me excited. But also just like I am fascinated by tornadoes and like that
I know
phenomenon.
nothing about them.
They're the wildest thing. Like we still know so little about them. Like
Yes.
but we filmed in Oklahoma, so I got to actually like live where they have them regularly, and we were there during tornado season. So yeah,
Whoa.
like they were a part of the process in many ways,
Whoa.
it for real. And I met like all these like gnarly storm chasers who are these absolute adrenaline junkie like mad scientists,
Yep.
and they were really cool. And I actually like one of them, Sean, who is our main consultant, he messaged like a bunch of the cast a couple months ago being it felt like a line from the movie. He was like, there's a crazy weather event coming in April. And like we all went out and went chasing for real.
Whoa.
Because I'm like, I didn't actually see a tornado, but I am determined to see one before I die. Like
Of
I
course.
have to.
Well, especially now.
Oh,
Like
completely. I'm like,
in on theme.
I can't have seen 5 in a movie world and not have like
Yes.
actually seen one.
Yes.
But yeah, so I think that like part of it, like that kind of ability to learn about that phenomenon, and also like, just like being something that had like crazy stunts and crazy rigs. And I
I know, I
mean,
can't imagine that's, like, probably kind of scary in itself, like, doing the
oh,
like
I mean, there was like it was like being in a full blown roller coaster.
whoa.
Like some of the scenes were wild. Like there was one sequence which I is just like such a sick action sequence where it's all done on a oneer,
Yeah.
with all these camera whips. And so we were doing it in pieces, and then they whip the camera so it looks like it's all happening for real. So you travel with the characters like as a tornado is coming, and they go down into this pool, and then you come back out and the whole world has been flattened. And so it's like it looks like it's all in a one. And it was like they were dropping horse trailers at us, like people being like pulled up on wires. I
Whoa.
was like, this is this is mad that
It's
this is a
fucking
job.
badass,
It was
though.
so fun.
Badass. Okay, you know what? You being a kid and not doing any edgy shit has all been, "This is your edgy
This is
shit."
my edgy
That's
shit.
edgy shit.
Oh my god, I'm being edgy
You're
finally.
edgy now.
I'm edgy. Oh my
Yes.
god, that's so true.
Yeah. This is giving you, like, all the edgy cred. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
kidding, 'cause, like, being a storm chaser is
Oh,
actually the edgiest shit you
it's
could
the
ever
edgiest.
do.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
you're getting to the edge.
you're literally on the edge. Also,
Whoa.
it's quite literally near death always, it feels like, with that.
Yeah, I mean, I like definitely when we went storm chasing, like there was
Yeah.
a moment where I was like, oh, we're not in the movie. Like this is
This is
actually
real.
I'm a bit scared.
I would be horrified.
Yeah, but we were in safe hands, and like the thing with like Sean and all those chasers is they're so disciplined, and they're so like they go as far as they know is safe. They're not like
They know what they're doing.
they're not sort of driving into the into the tornadoes. But yeah, I mean, like I also like have so many weather facts now, which I really enjoy. Like I love learning about whatever subject I'm like in the movie of.
Absolutely.
So apparently the most tornadoes a year happens in the UK.
Really?
Yeah, the UK gets the most tornadoes. a year. But
Since when?
they're really little, obviously, because I've like never seen a
Yeah, I've
tornado.
never once heard of a tornado happening there.
No, I think they have like extreme tornadoes is like the US wins
Yeah,
by far, but like
in general.
in general, the
Yeah.
more frequent like is the UK. Isn't that weird?
Whoa!
I know.
Well, now you can look out.
I'm gonna
a
be like the
little.
only chaser in the UK finding this tiny little EF0.
They're so small.
I'm like,
They're so cute.
It's just a little leaf flurry, and I'm like, ah, sorry.
Yeah. You
That's
can
my
probably
edge.
make your own there, honestly,
Yeah.
somehow. That's amazing. I'm so fucking stoked to see it. There's something nostalgic about it. There's something like something fucking badass about it.
Yeah, it feels like one of those, especially the way it's filmed. Like it was shot on actual film, so it has this like grainy 90s like disaster movie nostalgia that is so much fun.
Yes.
And I really also like this CGI. Like I thought the original holds up. Like I think the visual effects are really impressive, but the team that did the original were working on ours, and they were like, yes, we get like another chance with this new technology.
Yes.
And so like the visual effects are like it is wild. Like they look so real. I do think like the experience of watching it will be like as good as chasing. I hope.
Oh my God. This has been amazing. I get to talk to you all day.
I could talk to you all day.
If you ever want to come back on and talk about God knows what, just know that I'm here.
Oh, thank you.
This was awesome.
So lovely.
I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.